this video, we're going to talk about some of the common mistakes that we see as work campers that people make when they come into a campground and during their visit. Hi everybody, welcome back to our channel. I'm Jim.
I'm Corinne.
And today's subject is some of the mistakes that we see as work campers working at a campground that people make all the time. And we're going to start with the arrivals. Usually I'm working the outside, Corinne's working inside, and 9 times out of 10 what I'll see is the driver stays in the camper or the truck or the pickup, and the other person goes into the office.
So when they're in the office, I'm giving them a lot of instructions and a lot of rules or whatever they need to know. And one of the most important things is that they have to, I'm telling them the actual route to get from the office to their spot, how they'll go into their spot. I also give them, just all these other things. I also tell them how they're going to get out of their spot to the exit. So if that information is not relayed to the driver, then number one, I've wasted my time telling them, but it could result in some pretty bad mistakes on the part of the driver and just having difficulty either getting in or getting out.
Yeah, for example, in our campground, the entrance is on one side of the park. It's a one-way street coming in, and the exit's on the other side. If that information doesn't get relayed to the driver and they start going out the entrance when they're leaving, it's a long backup if another RV is coming in because it's a narrow road. So it's very important. I got to tell you, we were victims of this ourselves. I think it was one of our very first camping trips in a Class A RV. We went to a KOA in Flagstaff, Arizona. Corinne went in the office. They drew out the map for you.
Yeah. Okay. So wait. Yeah. So I was a newbie. It was the absolute first campground we had been in. I didn't know that campgrounds, especially older ones, that they might have a one way in, one way out. So I got us to our spot fine. I knew that part, but then on the way out, I had no clue that we couldn't go the same way. And I guess I had forgotten by that time. And it was scary because we ended up, this particular campground that we're in had some buildings, and when we were leaving, going the same way out that we had come in, we must have been within inches of hitting buildings. So I was out there, I'm telling him, okay, you can go a little bit, okay, turn, go a little bit, turn. It was horrible. We did get out unscathed, but I will tell you, you need to make sure you know the way in to your spot as well as the way to exit the campground.
Especially if you're in something big like a fifth wheel or a large Class A towing a vehicle. It just unnecessary stress that you add to yourself. And I got to tell you, it's a daily occurrence here that we see people going out the wrong way. And there's signs all over. It says exit this way. So we highlight it on the map and everything, and it just still happens. So if you're lucky enough at some campgrounds, and we do it at this campground, we escort folks to their sites. And it's very important. And one of the things that I see being a worker and doing the escorts is that people do not follow the track that you drive. And it's very important. Follow the cart. If they go wide, you go wide. They're taking into consideration all the little idiosyncrasies and dangers within the park and relaying them to you via the path that you're taking. Also, one of the things that we do when we go and direct you into your site, we're looking at your connections for both the sewer, electric, and water, and knowing where our sewer, electric, and water is. We're looking at your slides to make sure that when you pull your slides out that they don't hit any of the boxes for electric or anything else that we may have at the campground. So it's very important to follow the person guiding you, their instructions. Now, I do understand that a lot of people have their partner go out and guide them, and we do that all the time. I tend to follow what Corinne says more than what the person guiding me says, but it has gotten me in trouble a couple of times where I wasn't lined up with a patio and my
Right.
stairs didn't come out correctly.
Right.
So just pay attention.
Yeah, so and that really is one of the things, because I know a lot of times when we get to a campground, they'll tell us, "Oh, we have it," and I'm like, "But he's used to me. I know my RV, and so I go out there. I might let them do some of it, but I'm gonna still be back there because we use hand signals. I'm communicating to him maybe through the walkie-talkie. I know where our slides are. I know, and he also is used to my signals. And honestly, in the end, if we end up hitting a tree, scraping the side, it's going to be our dime that has to pay for it, not theirs. So I don't really trust anyone. I will be out there.
Yeah. And don't blindly trust the person guiding you either. It's your responsibility to check your mirrors all the time. Keep it at a very reasonable speed. We have a very tight turn in this parking lot, and we just want to make sure you get to your site safely. Now, I've seen some people who don't want it, and I remember seeing on Facebook a story that it was asking basically if you tip the person who's driving you. And no, we're not looking for tips. And there were some very negative comments, and they were like, "Oh yeah, they're only trying to sell you a membership or something like that." No, what we're looking for is to protect you and your RV. I can't tell you how many people would have hit grills in the current campground that we're at had they not had a guide. So we're there for your protection and protecting your investment.
Especially some of these older campgrounds. We work in a really old campground now, and I think about the Flagstaff one that was probably really old. So I think they know the work campers or the people who are working there that are going to guide you or talk to you even in the office know the campground better than you do. So it is what we're just trying to pass on along the information that'll be helpful to you.
Probably the number one problem I see has to do with sewers and a few different things having to do with dumping at a campground. So a lot of people come in, and first of all, we're in a journey, which is typically an overnight campground, and people will use it for one. They'll come in with an empty tank, use it overnight, and then dump their tank. And it doesn't give them enough time to break down some of the solids and a lot of the waste paper. Waste paper is probably one of the biggest things, or tissue paper is the biggest thing that clogs the pipes in an RV campground. And what can happen with a clogged pipe? Well, they run in a long row. A pipe comes from the beginning of your row to the end of your row. Let's say it gets clogged at the end of the row and everybody starts dumping and you have your waste valve open. Well, you're going to get sewage backing up. So don't keep your waste valve open. I know a lot of people do. It's just not worth it because waste flows both ways.
Yeah, the other thing, just to tag on to that, is when I'm taking reservations, a lot of people, this is an older campground, so we actually have sites that are just water and electric, and then we have the full hookup sites. And a lot of people don't want those water and electric sites because they want to be able to dump. And I always say to them, we do have a dump on site, so if you need to, and you haven't dumped in a few days or whatever, and you're full, you can still dump on your way out, and it's right along the exit. But I guess I'm just saying, be open to it. If you need to dump, you can even dump at the beginning. But if you're here for one night or 2 nights, you should be able to, unless you have a really small, very, very small tank. But generally these bigger ones, you have bigger tanks and you can go, maybe 4, 5, 6 days.
The next thing that we see is not being prepared for actually your meals. And a lot of people come in, they've been driving all day, they don't want to unhook their car, yet they don't have any food or any meals prepared. So one thing we would suggest is certainly to stop before you get to the campground and pick up any supplies that you need. If you're not going to unhook, that can save you some trouble and some DoorDash fees.
Yeah, and actually what I do, when we know, like when we leave where we are and we're going to be traveling, for, 2, 3, sometimes 5 nights until we get to our destination. It will be for a little while. I work the week before preparing meals, things that I can easily microwave when we get to a site. We'll sometimes do the peanut butter and jelly thing if we want to have something on the road. It just makes it easy because you pull into your site, you have it all ready, you just put it into the microwave, and I don't have to worry. So if we don't want to unhook, we're ready. So just think about that.
Before we get to the last two items, if you're enjoying our videos, please take time at the end of the video to like and subscribe, and this way you'll be notified. Also, we appreciate any comments that you have. Please put them in the notes below. They're searchable, and people with similar questions as you will be able to find our video to help them. The next one is to be a good neighbor. And just the other night, we saw a person. They had a little motorbike, they had 2 dogs and a couple of children, and a guy was riding the motorbike and he was going in between different campsites here, and the dogs were running off leash, and it's just not a neighborly thing to do. You're in a public space, but people tend to think of their campsite as theirs and respect their privacy.
Yeah, no, I've also seen people, when the off the leash thing, I think is my biggest pet peeve. Is we've had one of our dogs was actually bit by an off leash dog while the person was saying, "Oh, my dog doesn't bite," and it took a big chunk out of my dog's butt. Which resulted in surgery that we had to have done the next day. So I would just be mindful that this is shared. This is like almost like being in an apartment building, I guess, or we're very close quarters. Just be nice. Just be a good neighbor and think about other people. If you want to ride that motor, whatever that was, a dirt bike or whatever, go to a place, go to another place, and take a trailer it and get it to another place, and then go and have fun. But don't do it around the campground. That's crazy.
Same thing with bicycles. A lot of kids don't understand, so it would be good if you could let your kids know not to drive in between sites, just to use the roads, and also be careful. The other thing, going back to the picking up after your dogs, one of the things I noticed is a lot of people walk their dogs on one of those long extended leashes, and they end up talking to somebody on their route around the park, and they're not mindful of what the dog is doing. And that's usually when we have dogs maybe poop somewhere and the owner doesn't know about it. So just be respectful. It really can ruin somebody's day having to go after picking up after that. Okay, last but not least, the thing that I would say is to use a checklist when you're leaving. We use snap bracelets that we put on our steering wheel so we don't forget anything. I've had to run after people that have had their awnings out, their TV antennas, their satellite dishes up, even a slide out. And I've also forgotten many of those water pressure gauges at sites.
We have probably bought, over the course of the last, almost 3 years, probably 5 of them.
And just last year, we left a surge protector at a campsite and had to have it shipped out to us. And we get many of them in here at the campground. So I think I've gone through 3 water.
Probably more. I think it's like 5, but we don't do that now, because now what I do is I take the final walk around to make sure, and I'm checking for those things to make sure that we have everything that belongs to us. So since we've started doing that, I think we're in a better situation. But It happens. I mean, we see it happen all the time here as well, just because we have to, then the person calls and wants us to mail it to them and stuff like that. So, and then that sometimes can take some time. So you're better off just making sure you have everything before you leave.
Yeah, and a lot of times what happens is when you're leaving, your neighbor starts talking to you and distracts your attention. And I think this is where you get sort of your workflow gets disrupted. So just be mindful of that. Well, thank you for stopping by this week and watching our video once again. I'm Jim.
I'm Corinne.
And we're in RV into retirement. We'll see you next week. Have a great week, everybody.